studies of the Quran, and indeed in the last 4 years, have revealed a system for classifying human embryos that is amazing since it was recorded in the 7th century A.D. As far as it is known from the history of embryology, little was known about the staging and classification of human embryos until the 20th century. For this reason, the descriptions of the human embryo in the Quran cannot be based on scientific knowledge in the 7th century. The only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God. He could not have known such details because he was an illiterate man with absolutely no scientific training. It has been a great pleasure for me to help clarify statements in the Quran about human development. It is clear to me that these statements must have come to Muhammad from God or Allah, because almost all of this knowledge was not discovered until many centuries later. This proves to me that Muhammad must have been a messenger of God or Allah.
The Quran describes not only the development of external form, but emphasizes also the internal stages, the stages inside the embryo of its creation and development, emphasizing major events recognized by contemporary science. Thank you for your attention.
As a scientist, I can only deal with things which I can specifically see. I can understand embryology and developmental biology. I can understand the words that are translated to me from the Quran. As I gave the example before, if I were to transpose myself into that era, knowing what I do today and describing things, I could not describe the things which were described. I see no reason, I see no evidence for the fact to refute the concept that this individual, Muhammad, had to be developing this information from someplace. So I see nothing here in conflict with the concept that divine intervention was involved in what he was able to write.
I'm very much impressed by finding true astronomical facts in Quran. And for us, we modern astronomers have been studying very small fields of the universe. We concentrated our efforts for understanding of very small parts, because by using telescopes we can see only a very few parts of the sky without thinking whole the universe. So by reading Quran and by answering to your questions, I think I can find my future way for investigation of the universe.
The way it was explained to me is that Muhammad was a very ordinary man. He couldn't have read, didn't know to write. In fact, he was an illiterate. And we're talking about 1,200 years ago. You have someone, an illiterate person, making profound pronouncements and statements that are amazingly accurate of a scientific nature.
And I personally can't see how this could be a mere chance. There are too many accuracies. And like Dr. Moore, I have no difficulty in my mind reconciling that this is a divine inspiration or revelation which led him to these statements.
So the two Hadiths that have been noted furnish a specific timetable for the main embryological development before 40 days. Again, the point has been made, I think, repeatedly by all speakers this morning. These Hadiths could not have been obtained on the basis of the scientific knowledge that was available at the time of their writing, and hence could support the Hadiths reflecting the knowledge of God. It follows, I think, that not only is there no conflict between genetics and religion, but in fact religion that guides science by adding revelation to some of the traditional scientific approaches. That there exist statements in the Quran shown centuries later to be valid, which support knowledge in the Quran having been derived from God. Thank you very much.
Relatively few ayah is contained a rather comprehensive description of human development from the time of commingling of the gametes through organogenesis. No such distinct and complete record of human development, such as classification, terminology, and description, existed previously. In most, if not all instances, this description antedates by many centuries the recording of the various stages of human embryonic and fetal development recorded in the traditional scientific literature.